Olsen.
In this video, I'm going to share with you the steps that I took to pursue my marathon running potential. After I won the Bergen Marathon, running a 3:05:46, I decided to go out on a run only 1 week after the marathon. Keep in mind, I had already had pain the day before the marathon, run a marathon 4 days before that, and I definitely had pain after the marathon, and still I decided somehow that it was smart to go for a run a week after. And that's when the pain turned into an injury. So the first thing I did was that I saw a physiotherapist and I got it checked out, and I needed to have an injection of cortisol, I think. And then I needed to take 6 weeks off running. And then when I started up again, I started with my first running program, which was 5 minutes of running every 3 days. And then I would do 5 minutes, increase to 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. And this is actually the training program I now prescribe runners when they are completely new to running. The most important step I took was hiring a coach, because I knew that my training had been all over the place, and I also knew that my mentality was more is better, and I needed a personalized training program that would really help me just be a lot more strategic with my training. So I'd looked at these marathon training guides, but they were all very general and they didn't take into account how much running I'd done before or even my training level. So that was really something that I wanted out of a coach. I also completely let go of my previous routines that did not relate to running, meaning I stopped doing HIIT training, I stopped doing the bike intervals I was doing. I still did strength training, but not as much because the run was my focus. And keep in mind, I used to lift probably like five to 6 times a week. My runs were the priority. Another thing I did that I didn't really think about at the time, but reflecting back was so important, and that was that I biked to work, meaning I was cross-training 2 times per day for like 30 to 50 minutes. So this wasn't any hard bike, it was just zone 1 and zone 2 at the max. And I remember being really tired, but at least my legs were just like moving to keep that blood flow going and just overall increase my training volume. Nutrition. So I definitely focused on eating a lot because I knew that I was burning a lot of calories. I'd always heard people tell me, oh, you're a runner, so you need to eat so much. And I was hungry all the time. However, I had no knowledge when it came to nutrition, so I really didn't understand whether I was eating carbs, protein, fats. I didn't understand how to balance my plate, so making sure that I had all 3 components. I didn't understand how I needed a lot more carbs when I was running a lot more, and how that was particularly important before and after a workout, and especially when I was biking back and forth to work, meaning I had several sessions. So that was definitely an area that, although I had a very healthy relationship with food and would eat a lot and would also eat a lot of calorie dense foods like ice cream and desserts, I definitely didn't understand the importance of quality food for recovery. So I went on a road trip in California during this time, and California from Norway is a 9-hour time difference, and that definitely impacts the body. And this is something that at the time I really had no understanding of at all. So I didn't train differently because of this. And I also did not monitor my volume increase or really my training at all, because this was something I trusted my coach to do. So this is something that now as a coach, I'm very well aware of all these extra stresses outside of just the running itself, and really making sure that you understand that specific athlete and what kind of training that person has done up until that point. Because obviously if I'm someone who's been running a lot and my body is used to also switching time zones and kind of dealing with a lot of stress, and still I know from experience that I'm not getting injured, like that's a different story. But for me, as such a new runner, that is definitely something that I want to talk about on this channel, and something that I really focus on as a coach. And now on to what you're all probably the most curious about, my training. So I'd say I did about 1 month of base building, meaning I increased the amount I was running. As I said previously, I started with the 5 minutes of running, so I was definitely increasing a lot and very quickly. I don't remember feeling any pains. I had for sure a lot of easy running, so a lot of zone 2 running, and I would have a couple of moderate runs, so more in like the zone 3 when I was running steady state up a hill, but my heart rate was never too high or like extremely high. I remember thinking that the workouts were really tough, but this is someone who was very new to the running space, so any hard workout or any fast workout was going to be hard. I do remember after about a month, I had my first ever track session, which was running 1,000 meter repeats. And 1,000 meters at my level was about 4 minutes per 1,000 meters. So that workout is equivalent to a very famous workout that we have in Norway called 4x4, except you only do 4 and your recovery is 2 minutes. So here I was doing that workout, but with 45 seconds recovery, and my trainer was prescribing. We did start off with like 5, I think, but we very quickly progressed to 10. And when I look at this now, that's just crazy to me, because again, I'm coming from just being a regular runner, running 4 of those, doing then 10 in such a short amount of time with that short of recovery. It definitely did increase my fitness though. I remember, I think the 3rd time or something I did this workout, I did feel like I could handle it a lot better. So a key part of this training was for sure incorporating these threshold workouts. And then I did a lot of longer zone 2 running. So I typically would do about 70 to 80 minutes for my easy longer run, which is quite a lot. And then I also had 3 races, I think. So I had a trail run that was about 6 kilometers, and I had two 10,000 meters. And I really think that these shorter races helped improve my fitness a lot. I treated them as a hard workout, and even though I didn't do like exceptionally well at those distances, that really wasn't the point, because my point was to be a really good marathon runner, so that was just a part of my build up to the marathon distance. But I did have some shorter runs the days before those races, and also took extra recovery after. So looking back, that was kind of like a natural periodization, where I decreased my volume, but I increased my intensity because of those races. And then I built my Sunday long run. So I think I started at about 16 kilometers, and this was also not that much further than my just regular easy runs. So I did progressively build my Sunday long run up to 3 hours. So the longest run I ever did was 3 hours, and I didn't go by distance, I went by time, and the goal was for me to be out there for as long as we thought I would complete a marathon. So since my previous time was 3:05, it made sense for me to be out there for 3 hours. And I didn't look at all at my pace during this time. I just tried to keep my heart rate relatively easy. So zone 2, if I'm now with today's common sense, I know that I was aiming for zone 2. The Florence Marathon on November 22nd, 2019. This is when I ran a 2:46:44 marathon. And I remember the week before, or I guess 8 days before, on that Saturday, I was doing 1,000-meter repeats. And I was supposed to do 15,000-meter repeats. I don't know why my coach prescribed this many. But anyways, I remember I was at like 12 and I physically could not finish the workouts. I was absolutely exhausted. The day after, I ran not as long of a long run, but just that whole week I was really, really tired. I did remember in general during this period that when I had my training sessions, I was surprised how good I felt on the session compared to just how tired I was, like doing a regular life. I don't know if this is something, if you're a marathon runner, you can relate to. I definitely experienced this for my other builds now with my half marathons. So I do see a trend there. And I'm not saying that this was too much, because I really do think that part of this was why I did perform as well as I did for the Florence Marathon. But I think for sure, me not being able to finish the workout, I was definitely not conveying that much of my tiredness, like how tired I was, to my coach. And that was a mistake on my end, because what happened with my coach, I think, was that I wanted to kind of paint this picture that I was feeling better than I probably was, because then I thought back then that made me a better athlete, instead of now realizing that makes the coach prescribe you more training, which can very easily lead to overtraining. However, I had my last threshold run on that Wednesday, and the marathon was on the Sunday, and I cut that threshold run shorter, and I remember feeling really good. And then on my shorter easy runs, I felt pretty heavy, so I had a shorter easy run on Friday and on Saturday. However, on Sunday of the day of the marathon, I was running in the Vaporflies, and I just remember like the first kilometer was really slow, as I'm gonna put up here, but then I just remember feeling really good. I was feeling really fresh. It was just like the contrast from how tired I'd been in my training that made me feel like I was having the race of my life, and I got so much adrenaline that I just felt like I needed to like really kind of ride that wave and push it out like to my max. And obviously you always want to give it your all at a race, but particularly that day, I remember just feeling like, I was having the race of my life. And I was running 15 seconds per kilometer faster than what my coach had prescribed, but I was feeling really good. I didn't check my heart rate because I didn't really have an understanding of heart rate, but I just remember feeling like I can sustain this. But I hadn't experienced or experimented with gels, and I remember my plan was to do like the same as Bergen Marathon, just do banana at every stop, and I couldn't find the bananas. And I was at like kilometer 20, and I could tell that now like my body's getting, like I'm using up all my energy. And I had brought chocolate. And I remember like unwrapping this lint ball and like eating the chocolate, and it's like the worst. Like people think chocolate is sugar, but like really it's a lot of fat. So fat is like not what you want when you're pushing at that high heart rate. It's very hard to digest, and it was just like sticking in my mouth, and it was a disaster. But luckily I did find bananas, and I did use that to fuel for the rest of the run, and I managed to maintain my pace and even a little bit faster at some points during the race. So it's also to say that you don't need, like, I'm a huge advocate of using gels now, and as you'll see in my comeback series, I have learned so much about nutrition, but you don't necessarily need those better foods or better products out there to succeed. You can manage with just like the regular banana, because yes, I did run my 2:46:44 marathon fueling with only banana and plain water. And I also ended up placing 10th in a pretty big marathon, so that was also really, really cool. I remember feeling insane. Like, I'd improved my PB with 19 minutes. I ran 15 seconds per kilometer faster than my coach predicted, and I had only had a couple of months of solid training. I was well on my way to the Olympics in my head. But then I got too eager. Watch part 3 of my story.